الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين رحمة للعالمين بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء يا غريب يا مظلوم يا شهيد بأرض كربلاء ثم السلام عليكم يا أهل الرضا الحسين المظلوم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Greetings and peace on all of you. We are discussing the ayah of the Quran in Surah Yusuf, which sets the context for our lectures during these nights of Muharram. Our search has been directed to understanding the context of the Shahada of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. We in this gathering are with a belief, I'm sure, that we need to understand the context in order to appreciate what Imam Hussain has done for us. There are few individuals in the history who will be remembered for the selfless sacrifices they made. Very few individuals. One of the striking features of the Quran is that it wants us to inculcate moral vision of the Quran by studying and understanding the narratives about the prophets, about the leaders, about the spiritual masters. From all that the Quran that I read, I understand that the world has been the stage for the great prophets to appear, to emerge as the guides of their own community. And many a times they're faced with difficulties in teaching their own communities. Human beings have not always accepted the guidance from God. They have been arrogant, as the Quran describes them. Human beings think they don't need any further guidance. They're already guided through their own nature, through their own reason. And this is what the secular world is saying. Secularism in the modern times is trying to remove God from the entire process of human development. The best thing you can do is deny any religion a role in the public awakening of the people who could be guided by these prophets. One of the guarantees that the Quran provides is this: none of these prophets are without convincing example for their communities. All the communities look at their prophets and they find them to be perfect human beings. And not only that, those who accept them, they also want to affirm that they believe in them and what they teach them and what they guide them to the next life, which is more permanent. One of the themes of the Quran is that we are in this world in a very temporary state. Nobody is permanently in this world. Whatever life you live, ultimately you have to live this world. So there is a limit. So when we teach religion to the students, we tell them Abrahamic religions are linear. They start from a point and they end to the point. That means they are thoroughly history-oriented. From the time the child develops educational capabilities, the first thing we do is teach them history. In this part of the world, we teach them history of Virginia, history of the United States, and global history. If we are broad enough and not as limited as we Americans tend to be. Because we think as Americans that this is the entire world. Our geography is very poor because we don't know the world around us. We think we are everything. So there is this arrogance that comes through in the culture where the children and the adults, they all are moving towards that kind of understanding of the history. That we are the center of the history. Without us, history is nothing. What the Quran is saying is that all world communities are interrelated. They are interconnected. The theme that I started this year for you in this Muharram lectures is narrative ethics. Narrative ethics is founded upon the idea that human beings are related to one another. They can't do without relationships. They can't live in isolation. They can't live like Ibn Sina's, like, Hayy ibn Yaqzan, the novel that was written about of Ibn Tufayl, writing about this man who grew up in the island all alone and learned everything. What the Quran is trying to tell us is that no, you are connected with one another, and without that connection, you will not find perfection. It all depends on how you relate to one another. And this is where the test lies. كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. This is what the ayah says. We have given you the narratives, we have given you the histories so that you know that there are lessons to be learned. The lessons that we learn from the Quran, as the Quran assures us, gives us confidence that these stories that we are telling you, they are not hearsay. They have not been concocted and fabricated by us. That means God and His agencies. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that these are the stories that are there to teach you something. And ما كان حديثا يفترى ولكن تصديق الذي بين يديه. These stories that we are telling you, these stories about Abraham, about Adam, about Hawa, about all of these individuals that we sent for your guidance, we are not making it up. That's the clear message. Many religions in first 100 years go through so much evolution that they forget the original story of their beginning. Because there is no one to tell them that, no, this is how this religion started. So when you study Christianity, for example, there are examples given by, by the four Gospels. And the four Gospels are talking about crucifixion, that Jesus sacrificed his life for the sins of humanity. John is more clear than anybody else is, although Mark, as the Gospel, is the most reliable among the scholars. Because St. Mark is, he starts from the time when Jesus is baptized in the River Jordan. And after that, but you see Luke, you see Matthew, you see John. John is in completely different world when it comes to telling us the story about Jesus. But it's not the same story that has happened. There's a problem in relating the story because the idea is to generate a theology made up of stories. Let me explain. Theology is to create what we call a necessary creedal acceptance of the story. If you don't accept it, then your creed is weak. Your faith is weak. You have to accept that Jesus is the Son of God. You have to accept that he died for the sins of humanity. Not only that, you must accept as part of the theology that without Jesus, you will never be saved. This is how the simple story of the birth of Jesus and the development of Jerusalem and the stories around the Galilee, etc., they become part of the tradition. I'm using the word tradition because tradition is elaborating the short story into detailed legends. Afsane hui. That's what we say in Farsi. Then we make it, a big issue out of it. The part of the reason is that we are now going to limit salvation only to this religion. We are going to tell the world, if you don't become Christian, there is no way for you to save yourself. You must accept Jesus the way John talks about it. And what does John say about it? John says he's the Son of God. He's the Logos. He's the first of all word that God, created everything through it in this world. The world would not have come without the word becoming, the epiphany, becoming the reality of existence of Jesus. Can you imagine when the children begin to study that story, it becomes very confusing because it is mysterious. It is not straightforward. When you open Quran, for example, and then you go to the Surah the Wadduha, that surah tells you the beginning of the Prophet. That he was born and he was taken care by his grandfather. Doesn't mention the name of the grandfather, but it says that we made sure that he will be brought up well. So there is a real event that is happening in a narrative form. And not only did we create Muhammad, we also made sure that he is born in a family where the family cares for him. So the Imam Ali is right when he says that those who really supported first the Prophet were Banu Hashim. They were the ones that said, yeah, we believe in Muhammad. We know that this nephew of ours, this son of ours, would not tell a lie about. He is already known as Sadiq. He's already trusted by the people. You see how what I see in the Quran is that before a personality is introduced, that personality is prepared in such a way that when people see that personality, they can't say, no, I don't believe in him. If they do say, I don't believe in him, then it is heavy on their conscience. Because all the possibilities were given. All the things were said. He appeared, he lived among people for 40 years before he became prophet. And when he became prophet, I would say in public when he became, we do believe that he was already chosen for prophecy. He was going to become the leader of this community. He was going to become the one who would lead them into building a civilization of Islam. This is the difference between Jesus and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the founder of his own public order. Was challenged from the very beginning, how is he going to relate people to the government? The idea of governance was very important for the Prophet. He could not have moved without creating a community. And the Ummah had to be created on a different principle. The usual principle among Arabs was, I'm your family member, we share the same genes, we share the same bloodline, and therefore we are related. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, I'm going to create you brother of one another. Simply on the matter of faith, you will be connected to one another. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I want you to appreciate this for a minute. Why was there so much opposition to the Prophet's life in Makkah? No people, the Quraysh, Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, they were all, against. They're part of the Hashemites. And still they were against the Prophet. They did not want this mission to succeed. What was it that they were afraid of? I'm going to touch upon a very delicate matter, and I want you to understand this, that my purpose, my intention is not to create what we call unnecessary controversy or unnecessary misunderstanding on your part. What I'm trying to say here is, the Arabs used to worship their idols. Mecca had 365 idols, big and small. From stones, there was one idol, that was Jesus, by the way, which had a face. So we have a book known as Kitabul Asnam, the book of idols. And there it describes all the idols that the Arabs used to worship. There was something about it. His idols could not speak. The believers spoke on their behalf. See, I think the problem arises when the one you worship is oblivious of you. You don't even know who you're worshiping. You're worshiping towards this God, which is known as Allah, Al-Manat, Al-Uzza, and there are shrines for him, and the Arabs gather there, and they perform the Hajj around them. Yes, they did. Makkah had all this, every year they used to come for the Hajj. But they came for the trade, by the way. And they came for the trade, and they did, spread out the culture of poetry, the culture of, good speech. All of these things were part of the culture. When the Prophet comes, the first chapters that are being read are the short Meccan chapters. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. I want to challenge you, and I want to think about this surah that we all read. The basic line of the surah is, you better change your behavior. Believe it or not. If you don't change your behavior, you will not become Muslim. Your behavior has to change. Why your behavior has to change? Because you are accountable to God on the day of judgment. Before the day of judgment, God will ask you, how did you treat the orphans? How did you care for the poor? What did you do for them? How did you help the widow woman? What did you do for the wayfarers who came to Makkah? They had come from different places like Syria, like Palestine, and they came to you. What did you do to them? You enslaved them, and you did not even recognize their personality. You did not recognize their human dignity, as you and I would say. And the Quran is challenging. If you look at the Meccan chapters, They're coming directly and attacking the Meccan society for the lack of ethics. That which was missing in the society was ethics. They had money, and the poor were, ill-treated. They had money, and the orphans were ill-treated. Once you became an orphan in the Arab tribal society, you lost all your respect. You were treated very badly. Aitam is a big issue in the Meccan chapters of the Quran. The Quran is reminding them. If you were a woman born as a girl, then you might even be buried. The Quran saying, on the day of judgment, this small girl will say, for what sin did they kill me? In other words, when the girl was born, they wanted to kill her because they thought it was a burden. The boys were, respected, and everybody wanted boys. And the Quran is very much, angry at this behavior, saying that when you give them the news about a girl being born, their faces become dark. They don't like the girls. They want boys. So that they can claim the authority. The larger number of the boys you have, the larger authority you have. Abna, Banu Hashim. Banu Hashim means the sons of Hashim, not daughters and sons. The Prophet is coming now with a revolution. And the revolution is to tell them that I have come to teach you tazakki. I have come to teach you how to become pure, how to become responsible. Islam was not Islam, it was tazakki. The religion that the Prophet introduced was known as tazakki. And the Prophet used tazakki in a very specific sense to become morally excellent. It's the meaning of tazakki. Zakah means to purify yourself. How do you purify yourself? When you become morally upright. When you know the difference between right and wrong, and follow the right and avoid the wrong. This is the zakki. This is the word that the Quran uses many times. Not only that, what it did was that it connected zakat with tazakki. That means you spend in the way of God, you donate money, you give money to the poor, to the needy, and that's how you fulfill your obligation to God. You and I will think, oh, zakat is 2.5%. Oh, if only we pay. Sometimes we don't even pay. It's one of the missing dimensions today. There was this great alim whom I had heard in Najaf, and he said, Muslims stop paying zakat and we have poverty around us. If only they would give the zakat, there would be no poor. I think it's not only a communist or socialist idea that you do give something so that you can bring up, provide opportunity to all others. But how we are, how the capitalist society is, that you become entrenched in collecting the funds, in becoming rich and rich. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُطَهِّرُكُمْ بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ. You cleansify them by accepting the zakat from them. What do the zakat are used? They are used for the poor, for the orphan, for the city, for building the wells, building the roads, everything is like our tax. And this is the first message, by the way. The earliest message of the Quran is Aqimus salat wa atu zakat. The most original message of the Prophet ﷺ is become very steadfast in your prayers. Don't abandon your prayers. Don't miss your prayers. But at the same time, be cognizant. Acknowledge the rights of others on your wealth, on your strength, because zakat is not only of the money. Zakat is when you help someone, when somebody is ill and you pay their bills. All of these things, all these social work becomes part of the zakat. Imagine the revolution that Islam is creating. Dr. Shariati, with whom we studied, used to say that, it's very difficult for the students to put themselves in the classical age. We're living in the modern age. And for us to imagine what happened in those days and how people lived in those days is very hard. It takes us a lot of books to read to understand. I can introduce so many books to you that you can read and understand what was the Prophet's society like. What was an Arab society? How was it? What exactly was happening? Why was there a need for the revolution that the Prophet started? Ibn Khaldun, as a historian, is right. If the Prophet had not challenged the most wealthy in the society at that point, he would not have suffered from any kind of torture, any kind of possible, what we call their ill intentions and the way they bothered him. They wanted to kill him. When the Hijrah happens, they wanted to kill him. And all the tribes, were saying that we better get rid of him, otherwise we will lose our income. There'll be nobody coming for this Hajj. The way he says, this Hajj is no Hajj. You can't have Hajj with all these idols. You need to become wahid, you need to become Unitarian. In other words, I asked this question, why the Meccans were so much against the Prophet? When the message was so simple. And I'm telling you, I'm not oversimplifying it. Say there is no other being, no other deity but God. And you will become successful. Tuflihu. You will become successful. In other words, the message was so simple. And yet, it struck the chord. And the chord was, people realize all of a sudden that we have a prophet who is telling us that we need to be connected with one another. We need to pay attention to one another. We need to care for one another. In other words, the first message of the Prophet ﷺ was service. How do you serve people? Today, one of the problems of the religious leaders, the way I see it, that we live too comfortably and forget people who are living in a very desperate situation. We don't really think about them. How many times our religious leaders will say, well, I don't think I'm going to have this meal that you have prepared for me. Instead, I will ask you to donate this money for the zakat. How many times have you heard it? Hardly. I don't mean to say you should not entertain people. But what Islam is trying to tell us is that there are others who have more right than you. If you don't do it, you will be missing out on tazakki. Tazakki then is the moral excellence. And the moral excellence comes up in a religion that is action-oriented. Haven't you heard Christians telling you that faith is more important than action? I've heard it. You need to have faith. You must believe in Jesus the way John taught us. Otherwise, you will not be successful at the end. In other words, your salvation belongs to someone who is capable of creating the creed. And the creed is simple. Accept Jesus and you will be fine. Yeah. Islam comes and says, Inna ladina amanu ahmil salihat. Well, you can't escape the action, You are going to believe and perform the actions, which will speak louder than anything for you. We have our own brand of racism. We have our own brand of discrimination. We do so many things that if even Imam Sahib al-Zaman were to come, he would be very unhappy to see us doing that. It's true. There are so many things that we should not be doing. And that has become part of the culture. Modern culture does not use religion and morality in the way the Quran introduces it. For the Quran, For the Quran, the message is very simple and clear. Imam Sadiq, explaining religion to his followers. Among Imam Sadiq's followers, by the way, there were those who were ghulat, extremists. Yes, they were dangerous. They were dangerous to Imam Sadiq's life. Because Imam Sadiq wanted to explain things in a very straightforward manner. The ghulat, the extremists, used to twist what he said, what he taught, and his life was in danger. Because then the Khalifa, Abbasids, whoever was in power, would say, you know, these people, they are, they're going to rebel against you. And they wanted to kill the imams. That's what they wanted to do. They were always worried about, do you think, if you read even history superficially, do you think the Imam Jafar Sadiq would collect an army to go against the Abbasids after Karbala? After Karbala, none of the Imams took arms against the Caliphs. They did not. That opportunity would come to the 12th Imam when he comes back as a Qa'im al-Mahdi. Otherwise, all the Imams after Imam Hussein, they did not take arms. They did not take the sword in their hands and fight. They said, no, the time has come for us to prepare our followers. And how are they going to be prepared? They are going to be prepared through the performance of the good actions. Now look at what Imam Sadiq is saying. التقارب واجتناب التنافر من أساس الدين. Look at the way religion is being taught by the Imam. Coming together and stopping hatred among yourselves is one of the pillars of religion. That means you're not supposed to bring people and create animosity among them. No, don't do that. There are some preachers who do that. But I think we are in this center, we all know that we don't do that because we don't want to teach people to hate each other. We want to teach people how to love one another, how to care for one another. وهو القائل إياكم الخصوم في الدين فإنها تحذر الشك وتورث النفاق. Be very careful, Imam Sadiq is saying very clearly. Be very careful. Be aware that creating animosities in religion will only give rise to suspicion and hypocrisy. We should always try to understand what is expected of us. I always ask myself that if the Imam Sahib al-Zaman appears all of a sudden, because he will appear كَلَعْمِ الْبَصَرِ أَوْ أَقْرَبِ يَا مُحَمَّدِ يَا عَلِي. He will come. He comes and asks, what have you learned from my grandfather, Hussein ibn Ali? He's going to ask about Imam Hussein only. I'm telling us, I can show you the riwayah. It says, we will ask them about what did they do to Imam Hussein. You know that quite well, that of all the Imams, all the 12 Imams, the most we are connected with is Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Because he's the Shaheed, he's the Mazloom, and he's the one who actually saved Islam from further destruction. Isn't that true? Otherwise, we would not come together. Why should we come together and remember the Imam when we don't recognize what he did for us? When we recognize what he did for us, then we have a true and sincere love for our Imam. Imam Sahib al-Zaman is going to ask us. This is, by the way, in the book of Allama Amini. Allama Amini says that when the Imam comes, he will ask us about how did you treat my grandfather, Imam Hussein? Mawla, We were devoted to him. We came together in Muharram. We did this, we did that. We did Sinazani. We cried for the Imam. What else did you do? Imam Sahib Zaman is going to ask. What else did you do for him? Did you build orphanages for him? Did you build schools for him? Did you build the places where people could find refuge, could be comfortable if they don't have a home or something? In other words, what the Imam is going to ask us is about our performance. This is my conclusion, that Imam Sahib Zaman will not be happy to say that, Mawla, I read Ilahi Azman Bala every day. Mawla, I greeted you. I did the salam to you. Salam alayka ya Sahib Zaman every day, 3 times, in all 3 salat times. No, I want to know, how did you commit yourself to Imam Hussain alayhi salam? And this is the challenge for you and me. How did we connect with Imam Hussain alayhi salam during these very few days that we are together? And this is the challenge for you and me, to realize that in the hadith of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, there is no fabrication. I'm telling you, it's very important to go into the past. Many of us are refusing to say that we don't know the past. We don't know how it was recorded. We can't trust it. What I'm saying is that the trust will come when you are good yourself. When you are willing to do the good yourself. When you do the good yourself, then you will know that Imam Hussain is with you. And Imam Hussain has taught you and you have learned from him. In other words, it's a challenge for the children, for the women, for the young people, young men, all of them, for all of us. There is this challenge. You know what we say in the Ziyarah? Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum. I wish I was with you on the day of Ashura. Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fanafuza fawzan 'azima. Then I would have attained the high station, the high level. Imam Hussain says, it's never late to do things for me. I'm always with you. And therefore, you need to do everything that is within your possibility. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. Now we know how to approach Karbala. Karbala is Ibratul lil albab. The Quran says that the story of Yusuf, it says to Yusuf, your story that we related, by the way, Surah Yusuf is the most complete story in the Quran. There is no other story that is complete. This is the only story chosen. All other stories are mentioned only bits and pieces, as they were important for them. But if you want to read a story in the Quran, then it is Surah Yusuf. It's a beautiful story. It's one of the excellent learning, tool for us to see how Nabi Yusuf is, how Nabi Yaqub wants to trust his other sons and how he is expressing his doubts and how these conversations are leading. And it is an amazing story. What is important to keep in mind is that we need to travel in the past. To go in the past is very important for us because it is an awakening process. Sometimes your family story, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you don't like to even remember that. You tell yourself, I better forget this story, I better forget this incident in my family situation. I don't want to remember it because it creates bitterness in me. Let's say. But the Quran is saying, no, you must go back. You must remember and try to analyze how you could have avoided that situation. Because there are so many things, there are so many buts and ifs. If you don't control everything, you control some things, and you are able to change it. And the Quran says, I want you to take the steps to go back and learn about it. What Imam Hussain has done for us is that every moment in Karbala has been recorded by the enemies and the friends. So we have all the history in front of our eyes. We are not concocting lies about Imam Hussain. Rather, you and I are devoted and dedicated to Imam Hussain. Imam Hussain deserves all the truth, because truth will remain with us, not lies. Only truth will remain for us. The moment we enter the realm of lies, then we begin to stammer. We are not sure, we are uncertain. Whereas what the truth teaches us is that you can be, committed to it. And that's what Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, that the truth is your only means to get to justice. If you want to be just, you want to do justice in the world, and you want to spread the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore there is a big challenge waiting for us. My brothers and sisters, the time has come for me to take you a little bit in Karbala to discuss one personality. Narrative ethics depends upon our knowledge about the personality. If you don't know the personality, you don't know how it is impacting upon you. You need to understand who you are following. You need to understand who you should believe. What the Ahlul Bayt have taught us is that we are not asking you to do the sajda to us. No, that's not what we are asking. We are asking you to know us the truth, the way we stand by the truth. That's what we say in the ziyarat. Assalamu alayka nurullah. Assalamu ala hujjat Allah. Assalamu alayka nurullah fi dhulumat al-ard. In the darkness of the earth, you are the light of the truth. This is what we say. And this is how we adore our imams, rightly so. Because our imams are teaching us that the more you understand us, the more you will be committed to the enlightened behavior. May I teach you one dua before I come to the close of my discussion? There's one dua that I found Imam Ali has taught us. Please remember this dua if you can. Allahumma nabbir dhahiri bita'atik. Ya Allah, enlighten my being with your obedience. Wabatini bimahabbatik, and my inside with your love, Ya Allah. I love you because you love me too. Wabatini bimahabbatik wa qalbi bima'rifatik, and my mind with the knowledge and deeper understanding about you. Ya Allah, about you. This is what Imam Ali is saying. وَرُوحِي بِمُشَاهَدَتِكَ. Allahu Akbar. And make my spirit witness you. See you, Ya Allah. Am I saying something good? Am I saying something wrong? No. You and I, we need to feel the presence of Allah in our life. Brothers and sisters, it's very important to inculcate that love for Allah. وَرُوحِي بِمُشَاهَدَتِكَ. And the final sentence of the dua, وَسِرِّي, my conscience, my inner self, وَسِرِّي بِإِسْتِقْلَالِ إِتِّصَالِ حَزْرَتِكَ. And my inner self, with the independence of me connecting with you. I'm not seeking my connection with you, to this or that. I want to be connected with you directly, Ya Allah. I love you and you love me. I want to be connected with you, Ya Allah, independently. Ya Zal Jalal wal Ikram. Can you imagine what would have John said that no, you can go to God only through Jesus? And here, Imam is teaching, no, Ya Allah, give me the independence connection with you, so that I stand in front of you alone, independently, and you see me and I feel your presence. Little wonder, there was one person in Karbala who knew that things were not going the right way. Yesterday I mentioned Hur. And Hur, I say that he was the one, who stopped Imam Hussain from going further. He didn't want him to return, didn't want him to go anywhere. He said, I'm going to be with you until I get you to Kufa. And Imam Hussain told, Imam Hussain was very upset. He said, are you really playing with your life? Aren't you afraid that I could fight with you? This is the son of Ali. He is a shuja, he is the brave one. He said, don't you think I would not leave you if you did that to stop me on my way? Hur kept quiet. He said, let me go, then neither your way to Kufa nor my way to Medina. If you look at the map, by the way, you will see Kufa is in the middle. And Hur agreed. So they go and they reach. They come to Karbala. They come to an end. Imam Hussein's horse is not moving any further. And it knows its destination. The animals, the horses are so smart. They're endowed with so much sense that the horse knew that this is the station of my master. Imam Hussain loved his horse also. When you study history, by the way, you jump at the way animals were treated so kindly, so nicely. It's amazing. These imams, we know so little about them. We know so little about them. And this horse knew not only Imam Hussain, but he knew also the family members. For the horse, for example, Zainab Salamullah alayha would come and hold the horse, and the horse would be quiet until Imam Hussain rode it. That kind of relationship, can you imagine how sweet it is? And Imam Hussain, alayhi salam, they're all getting down, and Imam Hussain is asking, and the riwayah is long, but let me tell you this much, that Imam Hussain finds out that he is in the place where he should be. Karbala. And he is immediately studying the geography of Karbala. Where can he put his tents? Look at the mind of Imam Hussain. He is such a commander. He's thinking about his family, about children, about everything, animals. Where would they get the grass? Where would they get, the water? And so he's looking for a store. And he's trying to say that we'll pitch our tents right at the shore of the river, Euphrates. The enemy said no. Who said, no, you can't have your tents here. Imagine, there's Abul Fazl Abbas standing there, Ali Akbar there, all of these people are there, and the Imam is being confronted by Hur and others. No, you can't build your tents here, near the water. You have to be away from the water. Abul Fazl Abbas is very much upset. He comes to Imam Hussain and says, you told us we are not supposed to start fighting. No battle should be started by us. Otherwise, the history will read and write about us so badly. But this time, we are not starting it. They are starting it. They are saying you cannot build your tents in front of the water. Why not we come? This is the time we can fight them, defeat them, because they are few. Imam Hussain loves his brother. Abbas is so special. He holds Abbas's hand and says, Abbas, you are right in what you are saying. But we don't want to do it. We don't want to fight. History will write, we fought for water. We fought on the river. Our Hazrat Abbas, you can see this brave young man, 24 years old, is holding his anger inside. But his watiya, al-muti'u lillah wa li rasulih. He is obedient to Allah and he is obedient to, the Prophet. And Imam Hussain knows his brother. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, Abul Fadl Abbas was all the time watching Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. Hurr. This personality, by the way, is extremely important for you and me to understand, because he was the commander of 4,000 soldiers. And all the 4,000 soldiers were now on the bank of the river. They were controlling the river. They were controlling the water. You remember Imam Ali, what he saying when he was fighting with Muawiyah? That we will not stop the water of the enemy. We will not do that. Water belongs to everyone. Muawiyah was controlling the water. He would not give to Imam Ali. When Imam Ali controlled the water, he said, open it for them. This was the sunnah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And Imam Hussain also knew it and understood it. Abu Fazl Abbas even more. But there was Hur there. Hur thought that things would turn out very differently, because he wanted Imam Hussain to have a conference, to have a meeting with Umar ibn Asad, their commander, and all of these things. And everything they tried, everything to do. It was Ashura night that Hur was standing there. He's on his horse, wondering, should he go now? Leave his own army. And he knew that if he left like that, they would kill him. Because he was the commander. He was not an ordinary soldier. The commander wants to go to the other party, and this is a big thing.
I just did that.
He is standing there. He is hearing something in the air.
Yes.
Al-Atash. Al-Atash. The children are thirsty. The children are thirsty in the tents of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and they are asking for water. And his heart is burning. I didn't want the children to suffer. I didn't want to bring them and suffer like this. What can I do? What should I do? This is what we call the battle of conscience. How many times we go through the battle of conscience, my brothers and sisters, and how many times we get defeated because we don't hear the conscience very well. Conscience is the voice of God that we hear from inside. And that was the voice that Paul was listening on the day of Ashura, first thing in the morning. He's standing there. His companion soldier is also standing there. And immediately he hit his horse and started going to the stand of Imam Hussain. And the moment he moved there, Imam Hussain told his companions, "Who is coming? Who is coming? Be careful. You're not going to fight with all of them." Who came? He fell from the horse and put his head on the feet of Imam Hussain. Can you see any victory better than that? Hur, I'm telling you, entire Karbala, there is one personality whose story is enough to remember all the time. This is Hur. Hur taught us how to make a moral decision. Brothers and sisters, that's what he taught us, and that's what he did. When he put his head, Imam Hussain took his hands and made him stand. So, Hur, you're my guest. You're my guest. But I don't have water or anything I can give you. And Mawla, I'm going to go and get some water for you. So no, you're not going. You're not going. The Imam knew that he's going to fight and he will be killed. Hur left Imam Hussain in a hurried way and on his horse, and he went towards the enemy and he's fighting. But within no time, he was killed. Imam Hussain was so deeply hurt when Hur was killed. It is not surprising that Hur Today, when you go to Karbala, his haram is separate. But if you don't visit full, as if you have not visited Abu Abbas. If you don't visit full, you have not visited Imam Hussain alayhi salam. If you don't visit full, you have not visited, you have not said salam to Zainab salam. This is the time to pray. This is the time when du'as are accepted. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء together أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك تغفر الذنوب جميعا إنك بالغ علينا وعليكم يا الله يا الله يغفر لنا ذنوبنا يغفر